Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the LCS report. I'm Rob. He's Nick. And as always, we start with the most important question of our day. Nick, how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well. I'm excited to talk about League of Legends with you, as I always am. But I'm excited that we're going to be getting back into some LCS competition.
Oh, yeah.
I've been watching Valorant for a couple of weeks, and that's fun. But I'm excited to have the LCS back,
Oh,
for sure.
no doubt. No doubt. And we do apologize. Last week, we had some pretty major scheduling conflicts between the two of us. So we weren't able to get to our second episode of the week. So this is going to be the FlyQuest episode that some of you have been hopefully waiting on. We appreciate your patience. It has been an unbelievably crazy week for I guess last 2 weeks realistically for both of us. I think almost unexpectedly so. We do appreciate it. And know that we're trying to bring you this twice a week as often as possible, as much as our schedules allow for it. But now that we're past the apology portion of this, we have to dive into FlyQuest. They are currently leading the LCS at 7-2. We both have had them in our power rankings in the top three since the start. I think we all always felt like there was the potential for this team to be at the top. I remember distinctly us talking about how Inspired is absolutely amazing. There's an argument to be made that he may be the best player in the LCS right now, and I think we'll have to have that type of a discussion today. But I wanted to start this off, and I wanted to kind of frame this episode in a similar way that we did with the 100 Thieves episode, which is like, how much better have they been, right? Like, really, what has been great about them? And when I was going through the different stats on Oracle's Elixir, their objective control has been absolutely amazing. One of the things I've noticed as well, when I did get a slight chance to go back and rewatch some of the games and kind of go through my memory, they've been winning at the point of attack as well, which is something that I don't think is talked about enough. In League of Legends, they seemingly are putting themselves in a great position from the very start of a skirmish or a fight pretty regularly. And one stat that I think stood out the most to me for them as a team is that they have the least amount of deaths in the LCS, not by a huge margin, by 6, but compared to the team that we covered last week, the difference in deaths between the first and second place team is 51. 51. Absolutely nutty to think about in my mind. Kills is also, about 27. So there is a big difference between the amount of fighting that is being done between our first and second place teams. So we're seeing those different, sorts of styles. But Nick, I don't know. I mean, what do you think is really helping FlyQuest right now? And based on like some of that stuff I was bringing out there too, is any of that like a surprise to you?
Uh, I wouldn't say a surprise. I mean, I think that we've seen FlyQuest be pretty dominant in some games, but oftentimes they sort of start to it's often based through attrition, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna, if Bwipo has a good like counter matchup, if like a weird pick he wants to play, maybe bot lane is taking a few L's, right? Or vice versa. Like Bwipo has talked a lot in interviews and stuff about sometimes he sacrifices himself because he knows how much pressure he can draw on a pick. Where he's
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, it doesn't matter if I die or live here. We already got what we need on the other side of the map or on the other side of the team fight where he's drawing like so much pressure. So like I wouldn't even say they're like mistakes necessarily or anything, but often just like calculated margins, right? Like they're like, well, we're gonna get more than we lose here. Um, And then there's some games where there's roll over everybody, but I think more often than not, they are a team who's going to, just this type of team. Like you have guys like I said, like Lupo and Inspired, who are like pretty balls to the wall kind of players.
Mm-hmm.
They play forward, right? Uh, and Busio too. So I think that it's like a matter of uh, not really that they're like giving up unnecessary deaths, but just the nature of how they play and the type of things they force and their decisiveness has been a big part of why they're at the top of the standings right now, I think. And I think a lot of that stems from this top side, not to take away from the bot lane, but we have a lot of experience on the top side of the map for FlyQuest.
Well, and I think that that's the most important part is that like this is a good marriage between veterans and rookies or just less experienced players. Where I think Masu and Busio they've done their job. Similar to, I think, how 100 Thieves have, but, they are relying on one veteran instead of the three. And I think that that's been the major difference in the fights that are being taken. And I think that's the understanding why the macro maybe for FlyQuest has been so much stronger than I even thought it was going to be. Like Inspired, I think in particular, has made a lot of good calls when it has come to, what to take, what to give up, and it seems like truly, maybe I'm misremembering this because I've always remembered Bwipo to be a little bit more coin flippy. It has not felt that way since his return to the LCS, right? And it's not that he was coin flippy in like the same way that Hooney was, but just more so that like maybe just to a lesser degree, I'll say, right? Where it felt like he'd bring
He
out these
thrives in
picks.
he thrives in chaos. He
Yeah,
thrives in
exactly.
volatility. It's kind of like how we
Exactly.
talked about NRG. Like it's a microcosm of that factor, I would say,
Yeah.
to step in. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's like he thrives in chaos, but like this team isn't chaotic, right? Like they're not necessarily creating chaos. They are seemingly picking fights when they want to, right? They are understanding where they need to be at all times, and I think that that's been paying off in a really big way for this team. And it's going to be interesting to see if people can kind of throw them off of what I would call is a rhythm of their style of play right now. I was going through and looking, and while I would say they've mostly been playing not the same champions, but there's been like a rotation, especially in the top lane, of like 3 to 5 different champions that they're all playing based on, kind of what the matchup is and what the meta is looking like, what's being banned, what's being picked by the other teams right now. And, the player that I want to point out right now has been Jensen. Like, he's getting to play what I think he's comfortable with, right? He's been playing a lot of Azir, a lot of Orianna, and then he has a Corki game and a Tristana game. His Tristana game was arguably his best game of the split. It was against Dignitas. He was 9-0-2. Absolutely nutty thing. And we've seen that he's been picking up more of these types of champions as well. He's aging like a fine wine right now, Nick. And I know how much you love Jensen. So I wanted to give you a few minutes to kind of just expand on what you're seeing from him. And I'll add my little tidbit in there. I just think that he has been as consistent as it gets throughout his career, and that like level of consistency goes up almost every single time, like almost every single season, outside of maybe one. And you could argue maybe it was that Dignitas season, but I'd love to know, what you're seeing from him and what's been, I think, really allowing the rest of the team to rely on his ability, I think, to just pour out damage when they need it.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Well, first of all, I'm revoking the L word up from Vincent until he locks in Fizz again. But I have always been a big fan of watching him play. Like you said, he's in a position where he's on these comfort champions. Things he's played forever. The Orianna obviously is the big one. But also, I think it's a really good balance with it reminds me, this team, not completely, but sort of the way the top side functions reminds me a lot of 2022 Team Liquid,
Yep.
which I think we all associate that with with a negative because they missed Worlds and they were expecting to make it. But when that team was working, there was an interview with Bjergsen. Uh, I can't remember whose it was. Maybe it was I don't even know. But he was talking about how they have these players who are kind of more like stable, and then Buipo's kind of this wild card. He sees
Mm-hmm.
the game differently, and that can impact. It gives them sort of this extra edge. And I think we're seeing that with FlyQuest a lot. Like sometimes, like Inspired's just kind of playing a more cerebral game and methodical with Jensen, right? Or he's tipping the bot lane scale in favor of FlyQuest because the bot lane's no slouch. I just wouldn't say they're the focus of this team, at least right
Sure.
now. Um, and not that you can't play through Bwipo either, but you can kind of see that like what what he brings to the team is this sort of he's almost playing like at a different tempo than the rest of the team. It feels
Mm-hmm.
like sometimes, but in a way that actually works. And if Bwipo, he's very talkative. If you hear the way he talks about it, like he's aware of these things, and it's just freaky that he's been able to be this good coming back from uh, not playing for a year, right? And I think that was also a big thing, is how good they've all been, or people inspired have been from coming back. But to get back to the Jensen point, yeah, I mean, I'm of the opinion, and I kind of wrote about this, in my Game House feature, right? That I don't think he really ever lost a step. I think that his results were worse on Dignitas, and when you're one of the only active players to make the world championship every single year of your career, the stakes are extremely high. I also think that we've seen in when Cloud9's been like randomly bad, like when Jensen debuted his incarnation and they were like ninth place and they couldn't figure it out without high in the lineup for a while, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, he's not going to be able to save a complete losing team. I don't think he's never really been that kind of player. But what he can do is provide a very strong and individual level of play. And in our conversation in the article we did, Rob, he was very like he's like, I think that maybe on Dig, regardless of my individual level, I could have done more to form a direction for the team. Like I didn't. He's
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't think that I stepped up in a way that I could have. And this is a good place for that because he does have younger players he can mentor here, but he also really has been able to focus on his own play with guys like very strong-minded vocal players like Inspired and Buipo, who both come from very unique ways of seeing the game, but also complete opposites. And it's created this sort of like just place where Jensen can kind of just exist however he wants to. And we kind of joke about like, oh, he's in Oriana prison. It's like I don't think if he's in prison, I think he wants to be
I
there.
was gonna
Like
say.
it's been good. Like it's been a good time. Like they got good food there. Like 4 course meals. Like
It's a
this
you're
is
in here
not
with
like
me, not I'm in here with
yeah
you sort of situation.
yeah this is not the United States prison system, obviously. But yeah, I mean, it's I think that it'll be interesting to see if people start to kind of ban those picks away. But I mean, Jensen's never had a champion pool issue
No,
in any point of his career. It might be like, oh, let's get him off a control matrix to see how FlyQuest functions because I do think he's a good stabilizer for them. But
sure.
I don't. I think he's just been fantastic, but I also am someone who maybe take it with a grain of salt because I also thought he was still a top 3 mid laner when he was on Dig, despite their results.
Well, and I think that that's because I think you see the game less on results based and more on play, which I think is a testament to your mind as well as just I think too many people it's results only, and I think sometimes I even get into that because I love stats. I mean I got
Yeah,
hounded. Was it last year? I think it was last year spring um, for not putting Berserker unintentionally, to be fair, in my All Pro votes.
I remember.
Oh yeah, I genuinely thought I had put him on there. To be fair, and then I just kind of forgot to do it. But his stats were not the best that split either. And so when I was trying to decide on things, stats I think do play a big portion of it, but it's not the whole part of the game, right? And so
Yeah,
with Jensen, I feel like that's the thing with him. And I've learned over the last maybe 4 years or so to really have a new respect for who Jensen is as a player. Because maybe he's not doing these Tristana 902 games, right? But one of the things that like stand out to me is it's like he's always in the right position, it feels like, right? It always feels like he's in a position to do the job that is necessary, right? Which is a lot of the time it's to zone, a lot of time it's to obviously pour out damage. He understands what he needs to do in lane. Like he's such a cerebral player, and it's been really fun, I think, to watch with this FlyQuest team because what Inspired is doing is he's leading the team. It looks like to me, right? And allowing for Buipo and for Jensen to kind of just do their thing while Masu and Busio kind of figure out what they are, right? And
yeah,
what's really cool about that is this team, even though they're 7-2, I don't think they've hit their peak yet. I don't even know if they're close to hitting their peak yet, which is really scary to me because I think once Masu and Busio specifically become more comfortable, not just with each other, but overall, I think that that's going to really help to kind of push this team forward. And I think as they get more comfortable as a unit, they're going to be extremely, extremely dangerous in my mind. And so I wanted to ask you specifically, what has been the thing that you think has allowed them most to exceed expectations so far? Right? Like where like we knew that they'd be in this top 3 range, right? Or at least we felt, I should say. Because, obviously if everything we knew was right, then NRG and Cloud9 would be much higher. But they're exceeding expectations. What in your mind has been maybe like the biggest catalyst for that?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna sound like a slight against them, but I guess it's more of a concern. The biggest part is that the teams that are supposed to be above them aren't, and that's how much of that is FlyQuest exceeding expectations, and how much of that is other teams falling short. I will say I had FlyQuest a very close fourth behind Team Liquid at third on my
Okay,
initial
that's
power
right.
rankings
That's
before
right.
the split started. But very much those are my two closest. I'm like, these are the two closest teams. Like these teams could flip very easily. It's
Sure.
50-50, basically, almost 51-49 for Team Liquid. Even and then I think in our first week of this show, I said I'm like, well, FlyQuest is better than Team Liquid right now for sure. I guess what I'm worried about is FlyQuest really that much better, or did Team Liquid stumble out of the gate and C9 and NRG are having issues, so they're by default the strongest team?
Yeah.
And if the answer is if the answer is yes, that means this team needs to get challenged to actually be to make this last. We saw FlyQuest last year come out really strong at the gate
Mm-hmm.
in the spring. They finished in third in spring, not bad, but not great when you consider they were 9-1 in their first 10 games,
Yep.
right? Like third is actually pretty disappointing in playoffs when you consider the way they started. And then we don't talk about summer. So
Yeah.
it's that's kind of my negative take, I guess. My positive take would be I think that the biggest factor is the fact that, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, Bwipo hasn't played on stage in a year and
Mm-hmm.
has been he didn't have a ramp up time, at least individually. Like maybe you could say the coordination, but honestly, I think that the coordination was fine too. So you Bwipo coming back for after a year, he's been great. I mean, I'm trying to think. He's probably been the best. Yeah, I'd say he's probably been the best top laner in LCS, like individually, right? Like
Yeah.
so far. Um, like and Inspired, the same thing. Didn't play for 8 months. And I think that was a big thing. I had them a little lower because maybe this team scales up and it works out, but their bot lane is sort of an unknown. We don't,
Yep.
and it's because Buzio's been great, and I do think Buzio has a lot of talent, but it's hard to evaluate a player off of when their only LCS experience is playing with double lift. That can make you look much better than you are or much worse than you are. And it's just because double lift is a guy you kind of build around. You play his game, and you should. I mean, he's a great player, and I even think last year, like for all the 100 struggles, I thought double lift was great last year.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It was the first time seeing him without double lift, and seeing him. He's now the older brother in that bot lane, right? Like he's
Yep.
as a rookie 80 carry who's hyped. It's like the roles are reversed. We don't know what that's going to be like. We still don't really know. It's been good so far. They've had flashes of brilliance, and I think they've been fine. But um, I think the biggest factor was top and jungle coming back from not playing and being great. And Jensen, when I spoke to him for our feature read at them for the game house, he said that he wasn't surprised at all. He's like, I think like if you're a veteran player and you've been keeping up and watching the game, keeping your skills sharp in solo queue, he's like that's not that big of a deal. And maybe he feels that way because I mean he did that, right?
Mm-hmm.
2022, he didn't have a team in spring, and then he rejoined Cloud9. They won a title.
Yep.
And a lot of that was because of the individual abilities of players like him and Fudge and the deep champion pools of bot. So like, I think that's the biggest thing, and that's kind of also like where I want to wrap at this point. Where it's like, well, the macro has been good. Has everyone else's macro just been worse? And the individual players in FlyQuest are good enough to because they're all really good. They all have really deep champion pools. Their style works on all different kinds of picks. Jensen can play assassins. He just hasn't had to.
Yep.
Weebill can play whatever he wants. Inspired can carry on Sejuani as well as he can on Graves.
Yep.
So like, I think it's too early to tell. They've been great, but I would say, yeah, the biggest factor, if we want to be positive about it, is the fact that Inspired and Bluepo have just really come back from their breaks just as strong as ever. I mean, I agree with you, by the way. Inspired's the best jungler in the region right now. I mean, I think that I think I said River last week, but if we're looking at factoring in stats and results, I mean, it's hard to argue.
Yeah, I mean, I would say what's interesting to me is I think you're absolutely right. I do think the rest of the teams have been bad, but I feel like this is the way. I mean, they have been. I mean, there's no
Just
way
the way it
no like 100 Thieves should not be second. I'm sorry. Like as much as I hyped them up last week, I do think that they're a great team and they have a lot of good things going on. I think
yeah.
they're playing at like the highest level I think they can play at right now. Now they have a higher ceiling overall, but based on the experience and the stuff that they have, like they're playing at their best right now.
Yeah,
Um,
you can say that they exceeded expectations, and they have, while also
yes.
saying that a league with everyone else playing in their best doesn't have 100 thieves a second. It
Yeah.
could both can be true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think FlyQuest are the only team that I think is playing at about the level I thought. Like I figured 6-3 right now would have been reasonable for them. But Team Liquid have been worse than I thought they were going to be. Obviously, NRG, Cloud9 have been worse than I thought they were going to be. And then Dig, Shopify, and Immortals are right about where I expected them to be. Right? So, like, there are a lot of things that I don't think have gone well for the rest of the teams. But I also think FlyQuest have had to go out and win these games. Right? They've had to go out and they have had to compete. They've had to still play well, right? And their losses are to Shopify Rebellion, who are the Kingslayers. Apparently, that's all they do is just kill the top teams. And then they have a loss to NRG, who at the time was considered to be one of the best teams in the LCS, right? And so, and I still think you could argue that, but like for me, I think FlyQuest are. I think that they are a really, really solid team from top to bottom right now, and I think that they have things that I think can be exposed. But I'm going to make a quick argument that I think Inspired might be the best player in the LCS right now. And that's saying a lot considering we have, Cloud9 who have, I think, the best player potentially in each of their roles. And I think Blabber, I've made the argument multiple times that I think if you're not already considering Blabber as the GOAT for NA or close to it, especially by the time that he's done with his career, I think you're crazy. He's at least a top 3 player maybe of all time for me in the LCS already. But regardless, like I think right now Inspired is reminding us why he's won an MVP in 2 different regions. Why he can just kind of go in and his play style allows him to kind of almost have fun and also just win the game, right? Like it's been really impressive to watch, and I actually feel like I have disregarded him compared to where I should have. I should have known, right, that he was going to have a team that was going to be a top 2 team, right? Like we should have known that. Now there are times where they may struggle in the playoffs, and that wouldn't totally surprise me. But at least for a best of ones and just the way that I think that he plays the game, as long as everybody else around him is at least decent, I think that they can all be, taken to another level. And I think that that's what we're seeing right now. I think he almost looks refreshed, renewed in his play right now. And it's been really cool to watch. And I think that, I guess this will play into kind of our last 2 points here on this team. My expectations for them moving forward are relatively high, right? I still think best of threes are such a different beast than best of ones that it'll be interesting to see if like maybe they decide to find a target ban for Masu or for Busio or even Jensen. Honestly, I'm gonna I guess check real quick right now. I think Masu's been playing. Yeah, Masu's been playing a bunch of different champions. I mean, his best one so far looks like has been Varus, but he's generally like they I don't think have had champ pool problems. I think Nuke Duck's been relatively strong in their drafts. Like they just seem like a solid team overall. I just want to see them take it to that next step. But
Yeah.
we look ahead. Their last 5 games of the split, they have Cloud9, 100 Thieves, TL, NRG, and Dig. I argued that they have the hardest remaining schedule. They're at 7-2, but they're going to be playing 4 of the 5 top teams in the LCS, right? C9,
Yeah.
100 Thieves, TL, NRG, all back to back. And then you could argue that the 5th best team, well, 6th technically, but 5th after FlyQuest right now is Dignitas. So, like, they're literally going through the gauntlet. They don't have Shopify. They don't have Immortals left. Like, they are going to have to play the best of the best to
Yeah.
finish it out. Now, the good thing is for FlyQuest fans, they are 1 win away. That's it. 1 win away from guaranteed playoffs at this point. Or, well, not guaranteed, but Shopify and I think Immortals have to each lose 1 game, and FlyQuest wins 1 game, and they're basically in. So I guess their magic number, we like to do baseball, their magic number is 2 right now, essentially.
Yeah.
So what do you think about this schedule? What are you predicting them to do? I'm going to honestly say that I think they go 3-2. I think they finish 10-4. I expect losses to C9 and NRG right now. I believe is what I had predicted. I'll have to, I guess, check my predictions for our Thursday show, but um, that's kind of my expectations right now. Where are you at with them?
I think they go 2 and 3. I think they come back down to earth a little bit, and
Okay,
I actually hope for that because I think they need to be made a
humbled.
bit more honest by the rest of the league,
Yeah.
just a little bit. Because I think that we were talking about the value of Inspired, and I completely agree. I also think that it's interesting how Inspired can kind of he doesn't just fit into kind of any team style. He also like can bridge gaps. Like,
Yep.
does like Buipo and Jensen play so opposite, like in terms of styles individually, right? Like does that work without Inspired? Is that connecting bridge in the same way? Like this team is Blabber's a great jungler. Cloud9 struggles aside, Blabber's a great jungler. I'd say Blabber and Inspired are the two best junglers. This team would not work with Blabber.
No.
Like, he just wouldn't be the right fit.
Nope.
You know what you know what I mean? Like they're sort of that connective tissue that Inspired brings, as well as being a carrier threat, which is why he's such a complete all around player and why
Mm-hmm.
we sing his praises so highly. Um, that being said, I also don't think I need to see if teams have just not been good enough to try to put him on the back foot. He just hasn't been on the back foot at all this spring. It feels like
Yeah.
it seems like even when he's even, it's his plan to go even. It just doesn't seem like he's ever never not comfortable. I'd like to see some people do that. I don't think you can ban him out individually in terms of what he can play as on his own level, but take away the picks that FlyQuest are really succeeding on. That like team wise, like it's not about. You're not going to ban that guy individually. Ban
Yeah.
out the picks that FlyQuest works around the best. See if you can stabilize him because he's the go button. And then I think because you're not going to find Jensen and Buipo are such resilient laners. I think you have to go after Inspired here, or like again, as we've seen them lose games, it's oftentimes through a hard punish of the bot lane,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I actually hope that we see C9 Energy play up to par. They have two strong bot lanes when they want to play well, and I would like to see that I would almost like to see FlyQuest lose there. So I think that even if it means one less win for playoffs, it'll make them a better team come playoffs. I think that would be good for them. They
Yeah.
haven't really faced. We can't really honestly like look ourselves in the face and say FlyQuest have played every LCS team at the level that we expected these teams to be, because that's false. So I hope that the other teams get it together and we see FlyQuest get challenged a bit on an admittedly hard schedule. I don't think they're in danger of missing playoffs. I mean, I just like magic number. I mean, yeah, but I'm just like they're in first place right now, and like no, I mean they could every fan can blame me if they go 0-6 and miss somehow, and Immortals and Shopify, like get
That would
first and
be
second place. But
absolutely
I don't think
insane.
it's gonna happen. So that's kind of my last thing is I think they'll go 2-3, and I think it'll be good. I don't know exactly where the losses will come, where the third loss will come. I know that that two of them will be C9 Energy, or that's what I'm predicting, because I really think after the 2 week break, those two teams specifically, and we can talk about this more in the next episode maybe. Those two teams specifically are going to look more like what we expect. I think the 2 week break's going to have done them some good.
Yeah, and I think that this is a team that the 2 week break I don't think helped necessarily. Right, they felt like they were in a groove, and it'll be interesting to see how they respond. I will make the slight point of we're gonna be on a new patch, so and this one was relatively drastic. Like things like Cassante got nerfed into the absolute dirt. From what I have seen, his win rate is abysmal right now. So I don't think we'll be seeing that champion anymore, which I think will affect both of our top two teams. Not Bwipo as much, but he is just such an easy, consistent pick, and has been a staple in the league for the last year plus. So it's interesting to note that. Our last thing we're gonna do here is we're gonna make a prediction for. It sounds like we're both saying they're gonna make playoffs. Obviously, um, how far do you think they are going to go? We said with 100 Thieves, I felt like a first round exit was not entirely impossible. Um, I guess technically it would be a second round exit, but I didn't really know if they would win more than one series at best. What are you thinking for FlyQuest?
This is tough because I don't want this to be the case,
I
but
think we're on the same page.
I think this is a top four team and not a top two team when all is said and done. I think they could be a top two team, but right now where they are, I need to. Yeah, I don't know, man. I it seems so wrong to say that. Like, like they haven't done anything to prove. I just, it's a young bot lane. I think some teams are going to be better in playoffs. I think this team very well could make finals. It would be surprising to me to see them hoist a trophy.
Okay.
Truly.
Okay.
I hope it happens. I would like that, but I don't think it will. So
Fly
I would say they're probably going to finish third, like third, fourth.
FlyQuest fans
Yeah.
weep. They weep. They're tired of finishing top but not getting over the
Always the
over the line.
bridesmaid.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And I'll be
I hope I'm
honest.
wrong. I hope we look back at this and I'm like, damn, I was super wrong. That team just destroyed everybody in playoffs, legit. So like, but yeah, that's how I feel. I don't think maybe summer. I don't think they're quite ready because I just don't think they've been challenged enough yet. That's going to make a big difference in playoffs.
I think that they will finish second. I think they'll make finals, but I think they'll lose to one of NRG or C9.
Okay.
Because I think it's a lot for NRG and C9 to have to really push forward. And right now, like they are neck and neck for one of them being in the lower bracket and not getting that second chance to, survive essentially, right? Like it could be one and done for either of our, assumed top two teams. So I think that creates a little bit more of an easier path for FlyQuest, to be honest with you, because I do think that I would favor them against 100 Thieves and Team Liquid right now. So for that reason, I think they will finish second just because they have had such a strong first 4 weeks of the season. But I do anticipate that whether it's NRG, whether it's Cloud9, I don't really know if it matters. I do think that they ultimately end up losing like 3-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
In finals, just because I do think that there are things that haven't been exploited well that can be. And, that being said, I definitely think they can win the LCS right now. And it may end up being just because the rest of the teams can't put their shit together and this team can, right? Like this team is consistent. They are solid right now.
Yeah.
And that can go a really long way. But I want to see them go for more. And I'd be interested to see this team internationally as well. I'd love to kind of see them at MSI.
Me too.
See, what kind of experience and what that would do for them as a team. I don't know that I'd necessarily think that they do very well in internationally, but I'd like to see them get that experience because I do think that they have a chance to stick together for summer and ultimately, make their way to Worlds. So, there is that path. There is all of that. And I'm going to be really interested to see how they end up doing. But you guys should let us know as well in the comment section below where you guys think FlyQuest are going to finish. How many wins are they going to have? How far are they going to make the playoffs? Are you going to be bold and say that they're going to finish 7-7 and somehow not make playoffs? That would be whack. I mean, that would mean that most of the league is kind of right there. Like they're about as much of a lock as you get currently in the LCS. Yeah. So
if FlyQuest misses playoffs, I'll drink something out of a shoe. Whatever. Like they're gonna make playoffs.
I will join Nick in doing that because I think that is just so unbelievably unlikely.
Yeah. They're gonna make playoffs. It's fine.
Yeah, you can hold us to it. We'll drink, I don't know, something fun out of a shoe. But yeah, again, we really hope that you guys are enjoying the show. We do apologize again for missing one of the episodes last week. We will have one on Thursday.
My bad, y'all.
That was me too, dude. Don't worry. I was absolutely swamped these last couple weeks, but we are really looking forward to continuing on. We're excited for LCS action to be back. As a reminder, on Saturday and Sunday, make sure that you're ready because these last 2 weeks are sprint, man. You got 2 games and you got Super Week heading into week 6. We'll be going over our picks. Our power rankings kind of won't have changed since the last time we talked about them, but we'll discuss them maybe a little bit more in depth as well. And yeah, guys, with that, we'll catch y'all in the next one.